Well, it's been a minute, but I am really excited to see you all again. So, I've had a lot of requests for a replay of the video I recorded in, gosh, I think it was 2019 on Beauty Tutors. So, I've managed to dig into the files, pull it out, do some editing to it, because the crazy thing is, it is as relevant today as it was in 2019. Can you believe it? It's a problem that just keeps recurring. So here are a couple of tips and tricks to help you if you are experiencing it or if your clients are experiencing it via a different nail technician. So this class was recorded live, and I have left a couple of the questions that were posed by the students in the video as well as the answers, because I found it really beneficial what they were asking. Take a look and I hope you enjoy it.
Here we get started. I just want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Tracy Lee. I'm originally from South Africa, so that is that unusual accent that you're hearing. And for the past 15, 16 years, I've been living in the Netherlands. And I've been doing nails since 2004 and educating for the past, I don't know what it is, 12, 13 years. And like all of you who are sitting here on a Sunday night looking at education or looking at a webinar, education is my absolute passion, and I'm really excited to share some of my thoughts and some of my ideas and experiences with you. So, I mean, I'm not the guru on everything. I just want to share some of the things that I have found and I've discovered in my training regarding the lower arch and the hunt for the lower arch. Because this has been it's a major problem. Wherever I go, all the different countries that I travel to for education, the same problem is coming up. I'm seeing the same thing, and it's something that's really easy for us to solve. And hopefully, after the information tonight, we're going to be able to solve it. So here we go. It's all about the lower arch and being on the hunt for the lower arch, because for a lot of people, we seem to be missing the lower arch, or we've lost the lower arch. So what exactly, to start off with, what is the lower arch? We're going to be talking about why it's important. We're going to be talking about how we are losing it. We're going to be talking about what we need to do if clients are coming and they don't have it. And finally, we're going to just finish off with some questions and answers. So to start off with, what is the lower arch? So have a look at the picture that I've popped up, and you can see here the red line is showing the direction of the lower arch. This line underneath the nail is running parallel to my arrow is the lower arch. So it is the extension of the nail plate beyond the nail groove. And that is the same line that you will see on a natural nail, and this is the same line that you're going to see on a nail extension. That is your lower arch. So why exactly is it so important? Because the lower arch is a part of the nail that is going to create a break point. But we'll have a look at that later on when I have a better picture for you. So have a look at these nails. Various nail shapes, all really popular at the moment. You've got the pipe, you've got the almond, you've got the edge, you've got the Russian almond. We can continue. But all of them, what do you see? They all have a lower arch. And the lower arch is running straight out from the nail groove. Straight lines. You do see with a butterfly that it drops down, and with some extreme shapes that it drops down. But you never see a nail where the lower arch is flying up beyond this line. It's straight or it drops further down, but it is never going up. So irrespective of the shape, the lower arch needs to be there to create the strength of the nail and to help with the apex and the C-curve in part of the strength of the natural nail or the nail extension. So what does it look like when this nail or when this part of the nail is missing? And besides the picture that I used for the promotion of this class, this is the perfect picture showing the lower arch that has been filed away through various services. This is a natural nail. It is not a, this is not a nail extension. It's not a tip. It's not a sculpt. It is a natural nail that over time has been filed into this shape. They were going for the coffin shape, and unfortunately, in trying to achieve that beautiful slim shape, they filed away the lower arch. So I think we get to see this very often. Maybe you are not creating it yourself. Maybe you are not part of the problem, but when new clients are coming to you, very often we do get to see this, and we will see how to tackle that later with clients that are coming into the salon. If you have a look at this arrow, the starting point of the arrow, which is where the natural nail leaves the nail plate, that is the break point of the nail. That is generally where the nail is going to break. That point right there at the beginning of the arrow is the part where if the nail is going to break, that is generally the part that it breaks. So if we are filing the nail, as the nail has been filed in this particular picture, you can see that it is creating a weak point right at the break point. So why is this happening so often? What is the cause of this really in the salon? I'll tell you why. It's because there is a huge difference between fantasy and reality. People come into the salon and they've been scrolling on Facebook and on Insta or whatever, or Pinterest, and they've seen these amazing nails, and they come in and they say, right, I want these, but I want them half the length. Impossible. Not going to happen. You can never create this type of coffin nail, this type of this shape of nail, and have it 50% shorter. It will never, never, ever look the same. And unfortunately, we are allowing the clients too often to take control of the appointment. And our client is saying, make it slimmer, make it slimmer, make it slimmer. Meanwhile, the client has come in and they've got pork sausage fingers, and they think that they've got thin Vienna sausage fingers. So we really need to be advising the clients that certain shapes are, firstly, not possible on them because of the length that they are choosing. And secondly, certain shapes are probably not very attractive on those particular fingers. For example, if somebody has got a really a broad nail and a very voluptuous finger, or a very, just call it what it is, a big chubby fingers, the coffin shape might not be the most attractive shape for them, especially in a shorter version. You could rather do a more tapered almond, which creates an optically smaller nail, rather than a short, stubby, chopped off coffin. So the most important thing is for us to take control of the appointment, because we are the nail professionals, and give the advice to that particular client. I often use the example, and forgive me if if I offend anybody when I'm saying this, but it's the only way to get it through. Imagine that you are sitting there at the, maybe you need to see me for this, so let's stop the share for 1 second. So just imagine that you are sitting at the gynecologist appointment, right? And you've got your legs up in the air like that. And then the gynecologist is about to put that, what do they call it, the duck's beak, is about to put it in there to do the checkup. And then you say, hold on a seckie, have you used that lubricant ABC? Because I'm telling you, I've been reading about it and I'm anti it. I want you to use XYZ on that, you know, on the duck before you go in. Do you ever say that to the gynecologist? No, I hope not. Because why? The gynecologist is the expert. You are leaving it up to the expert. So our clients should be leaving it up to us. They have enough reason, or they have enough opportunity to make decisions when they come in and we say, what color would you like? Which glitter would you like to choose from, with or without art? So why should they be telling us how to shape their nails? We are doing the best possible shape to suit their fingers. And if there are certain lengths that are not going to be attractive or are going to be unhealthy for the natural nail, we're also saying to them, it's not going to be possible. And they should be able to accept that from us as the nail professional. Yeah. This great story here, this is a young lady who has been waiting, well, let's say about 5 years for me to finally get to do her nails. Please let me repeat, these are not my nails, but so I had been doing her nails for a while, and then I was away when we had an appointment, or just before I went away, I had an appointment with her which she needed to postpone. And then what happened is she had to go to another nail tech. And before she went to the nail tech, she kept saying to me, Tracy, taper them. I need them to be smaller. I need them to be smaller. I kept saying to her, it's not possible with your type of nail. And she went to the other nail tech and she took a photo, and this was the photo that she sent to me. And she said, see, Tracy, I told you, you could make them slimmer, you could make them smaller. Look, she did it for me. And I was speechless, because what do you say to that? Yes, they are more tapered, they absolutely are. But the one thing that just drove me absolutely insane was, if you have a look at the thumb, the thumb is completely missing the lower arch. And so in order to achieve this shape, the nail tech, the nail professional, had to really taper that nail completely. She had to put her file in the side of the lower arch and completely file that away in order to achieve the shape. And the picture that I've been using for promotion on the hunt for the lower arch is actually what her nail looks like when the product has been removed. It was scary. It was really a horror story. And if we can see the next one. So there is the thumb from the side. That is the thing that is causing this problem, is over tapering the nail, or incorrectly tapering or incorrectly filing the nail from the side. Yeah, just filing really deep into the side walls is so scary. So to give you a little bit of background about how this is happening, I do perfection classes where students come in with various issues. It might be that they are having difficulty placing a form. It might be that they are having difficulty with filing technique. It could be a variety of problems. They all come to the class, and the first thing that I ask them to do in the class is to create a nail as they normally do, without any assistance from me. And please, the pictures that I'm showing you now are not to criticize anybody. I'm using them purely for educational purposes. There's no names that are being mentioned. But, you know, during the course, this is what they learned as well on how to improve it. And I think it's fantastic that they do come to perfection classes to try and improve their skills. And so it is not meant in an insulting way, but as in an educational way. So the first nail they get to do as they normally would, and then after that we get to correct any mistakes, and they get to practice the nails again. This first picture, as you can see, is form placement. When you see the form placed like this, it is much more massive than the nail plate. I've popped down the 2 red lines to show you where the form should actually be tapered to. So in other words, the form should be customized, the form should be trimmed, and the form should be tighter underneath the finger so that it fits in between those 2 red lines. Because when we place product on this particular nail, it is always going to be wider than what it needs to be. So this was the form placement. This was the nail that was created on that form. So if we are looking at it from the top, it actually doesn't look too bad. It looks tapered. It looks like a coffin. That was the shape she was going for. So if we were just taking a photo from the top, it wouldn't look bad at all. When we look at it from the side, once again, you can see that the lower arch is missing. The lower arch has been filed away. And the reason for that is the form was not tapered properly, so the product was placed slightly wider than what needed to be. It was then filed to get the shape that needed to be created, and in doing that, we file away the lower arch. Another thing is, if you want to create a tapered shape, for example, if you want to create a coffin, then make sure that your form is tapered as well. So here you can see that the form is actually placed in the shape to create a square nail, but a coffin nail is tapered. So then you should be pinching your form closed at the edge, at the number 2 or 3, to create tapered lines already on your form. Another example, oh yeah, that was the hairline. That was the front view of the nail. And if you have a look at the areas where the lower arch actually would be, you could see how deep it is into the skin as well. But as I said, that was the first nail. Then we had another student. This was her form placement. Once again, without any assistance, she popped the form on. You can already again see from the red lines that the form is placed wider than it would need to be. In other words, the lines, you can actually see the form sticking out on either side of the lines. What would we need to do? We would need to customize this form so that it fits tightly underneath underneath the nail and is not sticking out on either side of the nail. I would also shorten the free edge here, but that's a different story. So then she popped the product on and she filed it, and once again, looking from the top view, the nail looks pretty good. And this is the problem with social media at the moment. The majority of pictures that we get to see, that we get to rave about, are only taken from the top. And they look fabulous, but just wait until you see a thumb sticking out somewhere, missing a lower arch. So not everything is as beautiful as it seems. So let's see what's happening there. Okay, so she's tapered it. It looks pretty good. We look happy with that. And then we take a picture from the side. And what do we get to see? Yep, there we go, missing the lower arch again. So if that form had been tapered, like we said there, if the form was tightened a little bit more underneath the finger and it was customized properly, we would be able to prevent that from happening. Another example. Right here, you can see that the form is actually customized a small amount. It is nipped correctly, or it is nipped, but it is still not tight enough under the finger. It's still not small enough under the finger, which means we're going to be putting our product on a little bit too wide. There we go. That is the end result. And from the top view, it doesn't look too shabby. When we look at it from the side view, again, missing a complete lower arch there because we wanted to make it smaller and smaller and smaller because it looked fat due to our form placement. So here we've got an example of form placement. This is generally how a lot of people are placing the forms. And once again, you can see where the red lines are, and then a little bit further out, you can see that the form is sticking out on either side of the red line. But actually, the form should look like it is growing straight out from under the natural nail. So the form needs to be customized, it needs to be cut, and it needs to be tapered a little bit more. Because quite honestly, this is what it should look like. This is what I'm talking about, the difference between the form looking like that and the form looking like that. So Eileen says, if it's sticking out, will pinching alleviate that? Eileen, you are correct. Pinching does help to a certain extent. But again, pinching costs extra time within the salon. And if you can place your form correctly, pinching is really not necessary. If you can taper your form to fit properly or perfectly underneath the nail, you wouldn't need to pinch at all, because at all stages we should be making sure that we are concentrating on the health of the natural nail. And unfortunately, pinching is giving a little bit of extra pressure to the natural nail that might not be all that necessary. I have pinched in the past, and I do pinch occasionally. I must be quite honest. I'm not a nun, but especially for salon work, if you can pinch your form properly, you may not even need to pinch it at all afterwards. But yes, pinching will alleviate a certain amount. This particular shape that I'm looking at now, if I was going to be creating a stiletto, I would place my form like this. If I was going to be creating a coffin-shaped nail, I would be placing my form like this. But if I was going to be creating an almond shape, I would be placing my form like this as well. If I'm going to be doing a square, I wouldn't be placing it like this. But with the almond, with the coffin, with the stiletto, they are coming out and they are tapering from the free edge of the natural nail. So why will we insist on keeping our form wider? We rather taper it, and then we will need to do very little in terms of pinching. We will be doing very little in terms of filing, because everything will be shaped perfectly already thanks to good form placement. Yasmin is saying, is this happening because of lack of knowledge or busy services? I think the biggest reason that this is happening at the moment is because of lack of knowledge. And I don't always think that it is an educator's fault that has taught you many, many years ago, because I must be honest, if I look at how we are educating now to how we were educating maybe 5 years ago, there has been a huge, huge, huge change in terms of form application. I never used to cut the form. I never used to customize the form. You know, and then yes, there was some pinching involved, but techniques have changed, and this is the importance of continued education. We now know that with a simple nip of the form, you can create a beautiful C-curve without needing to even pinch that nail. It's amazing. It's speeding up. That in itself is speeding up a salon service. Yasmin said correctly, is it because of the speed in the salon? Yes, it is also because of the speed in the salon. But the worst thing is that if we are not concentrating on the health of the natural nail, those clients are going to be experiencing problems. If we are filing away their lower arches, we are creating weak nails. So what do we need to do to compensate? We need to create Kilimanjaro nails on there to compensate for these nails that are possibly going to break. So yes, it's a combination of factors. So if you have a look at the picture that I'm showing now, you can actually see how this particular form has been customized. And you can see that a section has been cut out of the side to allow the lateral side walls to fit in there. So those lateral side walls, I love to call it the flesh, the muffin tops and the flesh. When we place forms like that, you can actually see that the flesh, or the fleshy part of the lateral side walls, is creating pressure on the form, and it's actually pushing the form out. Only when we nip that section away do we allow, or do we release the muffin top, and do we allow the lateral side walls to fall into that open section, which doesn't cause any more pressure on the form. The thicker the lateral side walls are, or the fleshier or the meatier they are, the more space you will need to create in there, so it doesn't cause pressure on the form. And by doing that, you can taper your form really nice and tight. Okay, so we're then going to place product. Same story here. If your form is tapered properly, all you need to do is press your product onto the form, and you're, once again, already, without pinching, you will already start seeing the tapered shape. This is all thanks to form application. as you can see here, the same shape came from there. That was the form, and that is your product that has been placed. So you create the shape in your form already. No pinching, we haven't filed yet, but it's already looking like the nail that we want to create. And then I've got a short video here to show you how we've started filing, because except for form placement, this is one of the biggest issues and the biggest causes of filing away or losing the lateral, the lower arch. So right now we are only shaping it. And as you can see, when we're filing, we're taking the file and filing in the shape of the nail. So if we want it tapered, we are going to hold the file tapered. Right, now we're going around the cuticle area. We're still not faffing with the lower arches at this stage. There we go, on the other side, all looking fine, not too much filing necessary. And then let's see, haha, here we go. So pause. Okay. Question from Eileen. Do you place your tip or your form up or down to help the lower arch depending on the shape of the natural nail? Well, it depends on the shape that you want to create, Eileen. If you are doing a Russian almond, your form is going up. If you're doing a stiletto, your form is going slightly down. If you are doing a square nail, your form is going slightly up. So depending on the nail shape will depend on the direction that you will be placing your form. And that is why there are so many different classes at the moment, say, with different nail shapes, because people just think, oh, well, I'm going to place my form, I'm going to put product on, and then I'm going to, file it in the shape I want it to be. That's really not the case. Your form placement will determine the shape of your nail. We can't just put them all down square and then create almond or Russian almond purely by filing, because that is how the lower arch, how we lose the lower arch. So depending on the nail shape will depend on how your form will be placed. This is a recommendation. This is something that I would recommend to everybody. If you are experiencing that problem, that you are just filing that little bit too much on the lower arch, is when you do your filing of your nails, whether it's a new set, whether it's a rebalance, whatever the case might be, when you get to file your lower arches, I would recommend rolling the finger to the side and keeping your file parallel with your finger as you start filing the lower arch, because this gives you complete view of where that lower arch is and how much of it you are filing. There is no way, it is, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it is, it is virtually impossible to file your lower arch away if you are filing like this. So we will continue filing. All right, keep it parallel with the finger. There we go. And you can see what you're going to file away. And you have got full control of it. Great thing to do is to take also a sharp metal file, and then you can get right into the corner if need be. Right, the problem comes in when we are filing, and I'm going to get that there. Right, a lot of the time when we are filing, and this has got to do with salon speed as well, we're taking the file and we are tapering it under there without looking what we are filing on. And if you see that angle, right, besides that I'm missing the corner of my product, look at what your file is doing. Your file is actually filing up. That is how you start losing your lower arch. Let's go back. So you slip your file in there, 1, 2, 3. And if I rotate the finger to show you what that file is actually doing, you can see the direction that the file is going in. So that is an absolute no-no. So there you have your finished nail, right? It's tapered, it's a coffin. It's not a tiny coffin, because I think it would look really awful as a tiny coffin. In other words, if you needed this free edge to be even smaller, this looks just really nice on this length nail. If we look at it from the side, you can actually see that the lower arch is extending beautifully and naturally out from the natural nail. So pretty much the way a natural nail would grow out. So you've got your full lower arch there. So let's talk about the filing. If you are wanting to go and taper that form, go in, and a tip from me is to keep the colored line of your file. So like you can see the file here, that black line, keep it towards your face. Make sure that you are never not able to see the top part of your file. And in that way, you are never filing too much away from your lower arch. And this would be the different view then. That's how I would do it. When you start turning your file and twisting it underneath, as in this picture here, you often have little control over which direction or exactly how much of your lower arch that you are filing away. So I would always recommend start like that instead of filing it like that. I hope that makes sense. So let's have a look at this principle when we are talking about tips, because it works exactly the same. So for those of you who are using tips, you know, very often we're seeing this on TV, on Instagram TV, they take the tip, they're going to taper it by just nipping off the front and actually cutting the tip into a coffin shape, right? And then when you have a look at the tip from the side, can you see that the lower arch has been nipped away already? So it is impossible to create a lower arch on this nail, on this tip, because it's already been cut away in order to create the coffin shape. So instead of using a square tip to create a coffin shape, why don't you use a stiletto tip? This would be so much easier and so much more effective. Pop a stiletto tip on, nip off the free edge, and there you have, voila, you have your lower arch. Perfect. I'm not a huge fan of tips, but you know what? If it gives you the result you want and it gives you the speed that you want, I'm all for it. But just make sure that you are using the right tips for the right shape, not a square tip for a coffin nail. Okay, so then we have the story when the client comes back for rebalancing. What is going to happen? So we have 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Okay, so of course that's exactly what happens to the nail. That entire extension moves forward. And what do you see at the corners where your smile line would be, or at your free edge? It is already so much larger than when you first placed it, obviously, because that is where you started tapering it from. So this is what happens. We start cutting, right? We would shape it from the sides, we would shape it from the front, and this could be a very, very dangerous thing to do, especially when you are using a coffin form. A coffin is a nail that is really, really difficult to do rebalancing on and to do maintenance on. Generally, if you have created a coffin shape, you can rebalance, I don't want to say how many times, but sometimes 2 to 3 times before the lower arch starts becoming a problem. Some people are pinching in between to try and get that shape again. But generally, after 2 to 3 times, the lower arches do start getting filed away, and it's because of this. You can see it in the picture, because as the nail grows out, the wider part moves down to the area that you want to taper. So natural nails, we were talking about, Simone was asking us about natural nails. These are Schwann's beautiful natural nails. I'm not doing advertising for IBX, although I'm sure Tracy wouldn't mind me doing it at all. Nicolette, you can tell her I was advertising for her. You can see Schwann's nails here. They are magnificent, and this is generally the direction, or this is generally how the natural nails grow out. They grow out square. The longer that they get, they start curling in, but first they will grow out square. So if we want to take this nail and create a coffin on it, what would we do? We would taper it like the two red lines on the middle finger. And then if you have a look at the thumb at the top, by tapering with those lines, we're going to taper away the lower arch. So when somebody has got beautiful natural nails that look like this, I honestly would not try and create a tiny coffin on those natural nails. I would rather go to a soft almond, or keep them square or squoval, instead of really ruining those nails and filing away the lower arches. The nails need to come straight out before any shape needs to be created. I hope that makes sense to everybody. Why is this all so bad? What is the biggest problem here? You know, well, the problem is pretty easy. You can see in the picture here that we start filing higher and higher up in the corners of the natural nail in order to achieve the shape. This particular finger is slightly wider than most fingers. The client came in and asked for a coffin and insisted on it being more tapered. The nail, the form was placed too wide, and then in order to get the shape that the client wanted, the nail technician needed to go in and file really, really tapered from the corner where the arrows are. And that means that you can start creating onycholysis, in other words, separation from the nail plate and the nail bed, because the file is going higher and higher and higher up on that nail plate. The biggest problem with having a client like this is form placement on these nails is virtually impossible. In order to get your form up all the way into those corners without it sticking up or without it sticking out is virtually impossible. So we are creating a problem, a recurring problem. We are creating a problem that keeps coming back if we continue to file incorrectly and continue to taper nails that really shouldn't be tapered that much. Okay, so Monique says, I always file on the right side, the lower arch. Right, so Monique has got a problem that it is only happening on one side. Well, Monique, that's good that it's only happening on one side, which means you're doing something right on the other side. So Monique, what is the tip that I gave is, so if you are having a problem on your right side, so is it the right side of the client or your right side, just make sure that when you're doing it, that you are actually taking the finger and you're turning it to the side and filing both sides exactly the same way. So doing it like that, and then rotating the finger to the other side and keeping it straight like that. And I always keep my file parallel with the middle line of my finger. Right, that doesn't mean it needs to, well, it needs to start here, and it must always be parallel with the middle line of my finger. So when I'm filing it, it's going to be like that. My file will always be like that. And then rotate the finger to the other side, and the file will be like that. And in that way, there is absolutely no way that you can file those lower arches away. If you can file them away using that technique, you are a genius. But the other, what I was saying, the other thing about filing is when we are filing the shape of the free edge, whether it be almond or whether it be coffin or whatever it is, make sure that you can always see the top line of your file, right? So when I'm filing it, I'm filing it like that, and this top line will always be facing my face, because in that way I can never taper my file underneath the finger like that. It will always be on top. So between those two tips, you should be able to save as much of the lower arch as possible. Right, so Nicolette says she also experiences that problem by her, when she is doing her own nails. Definitely. But Nicolette, so I want you to try, even though this is a little bit more difficult on yourself, you can also, which is something that I do, is I rest my elbow on the table and I put my finger out in front like that, and then I file my lower arches when I'm doing my own nails. Not at this length, obviously, these little babies, but, and then I can keep it parallel with the finger and keep my lower arch parallel. From the other side, it does become a little bit more difficult. I do still need to rotate my finger like that. But if you are keeping it parallel with the middle line of your finger, you should get them pretty straight. Once you filed both sides, you can always check that both lower arches are parallel by putting your file right underneath there, keeping your file nice and straight and checking that way. Or if you've got longer nails, by having a look this way, by rolling your finger to check whether both sides are parallel. Right. So we had the question, what do we do when clients come in with problems like that? Right, so you've got a client that comes in and has got no lower arches. So what do you do? The best thing that you could possibly do is to slip a form underneath there and correct them. But I do understand what it's like in the salon, that it is that you're under time pressure. You don't know what this that this client has no lower arches when she has booked the appointment. It's a new client. So if you don't have the time to do that, I would suggest that you do your complete rebalancing and just make the suggestion that you need to change the shape to it, and that slowly but surely you are going to start creating lower arches for her. Show her the nail from the side, explain to her where her nail should be, and just say, look, we don't have the time to do a complete new set, but this is the direction that we're going to be working in. We want to start creating lower arches for you, which are going to make your nails even stronger, which are going to create beautiful, strong extensions and give you a lot more pleasure of your nails. But the first thing, if you've got the time, pop a form under there and extend the product all the way down to where the lower arches should be.
And there you have it, on the hunt for the lower arch. Well, we found it, we have figured out how to maintain it, and I look forward to any questions you might have. Pop them down in the comments below, any additional feedback you might have, or anything else that you are struggling with that you would like some tips and tricks on. I look forward to hearing from you. This is Tracy. Ciao for now.